All right, class, today we're going to learn how to get started with our sugar skull. So for this project, we're going to learn how to model basic forms, add clay together. We're going to learn to hollow. You can see this one's got a lid. And so let's get started. I'm going to start with a 4-pound block of clay, and we're essentially starting with this for our main structure, so that's what we're going to create first. So I've got my 4-pound block of clay. I'm going to take the dull side of my knife, and I'm just going to mark the halfway point across there. Now I'm going to mark half of the half, so essentially I need to cut off a quarter of this. This piece right here is going to end up becoming this, and this other big chunk is going to end up being the sphere for the back there. So again, I've got it marked halfway, quarter way, cut that off. So now we're ready to model. So again, this piece is going to become the cube that goes on the front here. This piece is going to become a sphere. So the best way to create a sphere is make it not a square. It seems pretty obvious, but all of the corners, we need to start by knocking those down. And I'm using the palm of my hand and patting like that. You kind of need to have a plan of what you're doing when you're doing this. I've seen a lot of students just kind of smacking on the table and hope that it will somehow magically become a ball, but it doesn't work that way. So what I'm looking for are straight edges that need rounded over, looking for corners that need rounded over, and I'll just keep working that until it becomes a sphere. Okay, so I would obviously take that a little bit further. For this piece, again, we need to turn this into a cube. This one I am going to smack on the table a little bit because cubes have flat sides. So I'm trying to take this and get it down into a square so that it is pretty equal from side to side. So I know if I turn it 90 degrees and pat it, it will end up having 6 flat sides. And don't worry too much if one side of it has kind of an indentation like that. We're going to cut some of that off, but hopefully one side does not. So we'll work this a little bit more, again, until it seems like all of the sides are the same dimension. So I'm going to take the side that's got this dent in it, and again, we're going to cut some of that off. So I'm going to line it up like this. Same thing we did before, but don't get carried away. We're going to mark halfway. We're going to mark half of a half, so a quarter of it, but we're not going to chop that off this time. What we're going to do this time is take a line, and we're going to draw a curving line from here to this bottom left corner. So once we do that, I'm going to use the sharp edge of my fettling knife and try to cut along that swoop. The idea is that this will now fit up against my sphere here and create this front part that pops out from the skull. So this is our basic form for that. So once we've got this into a sphere, this cut this way, we're going to slip and score these together. So I'll show you that next. Okay, so I worked on my sphere here a little bit, get it more like what I want. I'm just going to kind of trace where this block is going to go. That way I know where I need to slip and score. So I'm going to slip and score this whole area and this whole area, and then put those two together. I find when I'm slipping and scoring a larger area like this, I like to use a lot of slip and really kind of swirl it around in there and make sure that it's filling in all those scratches. By doing this, it'll make sure, number one, that this stays together, but number two, that I'm not creating any air bubbles in there. So swirling that around in there will really help make sure that all those little scratch marks are filled in with slip. Okay, and I'll repeat the same thing on this piece. Okay, so got this piece slipped and scored, this piece slipped and scored. I'm going to join them together. So as I join them together, my goal is going to be to really form this to that. So working on your project board and making sure you got one of those plastic sheets is a good thing. I don't have one of those, but I really am pushing, and where this was a cube and flat-sided, obviously it's going against this round sphere here. So as I'm pushing, I want to see that slip squeezing out. That means it's making good surface contact, and then I can clean that up a little bit. So this is going to want to stiffen up a little bit, really get these two to come together before we start modifying this form to create our skull. All right, go team.